Hey everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit. Welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a bunch of people asked hand history questions. This one actually came privately via email, and Ju just wants me to review this hand played in a home game. So let's check it out. Okay, so in this home game, the blinds are 1-2. Hero decides to raise with fours. Okay, totally standard. Gets a call, gets another call, totally standard. Go here, and not totally standard. We end up flopping a boat, which is always fun. Check. Here decides to bet for 20. And I love the fact that we're betting. My only small gripe is that I'd prefer this be just a little bit larger, probably something like 25, 28, something like that. I think would be a little bit better. It's one of those textures where if someone has a pocket pair, I expect a lot of inelasticity. If someone has a flush draw, I expect a lot of inelasticity, or even 5-6. And if someone wants to float or peel, I don't think there's going to be much of a difference between betting 20 or 28 or 20 and 25. So if they're going to give me action with that bigger number at roughly the same frequency, I'd always rather go with the bigger number. So in this situation, we end up getting called in both spots. It's always fun. Go here, check, and here decides to bet again, this time for 25. Okay, so this is most likely going to be my biggest gripe with the hand, but this is really, really important. So the size here is crucial because if you mess up the size, one, you give too good of a price right now. That's a problem. Two is you let them off the hook when you could have gotten more money in. And then three is that it sets it up for a different river size, which can make it very, very problematic when trying to get stacks inside. So all of those things combined make me really, really, really dislike the size. I'm happy that we're betting, I just want the size to be better. And honestly, this is like a universal problem. People just size really, really poorly and leave a lot of money on the table, and they bluff poorly in terms of sizing, they value bet poorly in terms of sizing, and I don't want to see you guys make those mistakes. So if you're constantly making bets that are a little too small, this is something that you definitely want to take a peek at and make sure that you're paying attention to. So I would much prefer this be at minimum like 60, 65. But more realistically, I'd probably just make this $75 and go from there. Now I'm going to say this is also a really sexy spot to consider a check raise, because this could be a spot where we check, we rep ace king, the cutoff bets his entire range, bets it with pairs, bets it with floats, bets it with flush draws, all that. The big blind calls a little bit more because he thinks that we just have ace king and we're going to go away, and then boom, here we are with a check raise. Really, really sexy option. That being said, you want to be very, very sure that the cutoff is actually going to bet, because you don't just want to check here, let this streak go checked through, and all of a sudden it's just going to be a nightmare to try to get stacks inside. So if the cutoff's the kind of guy that you can say, okay, I think that dude's going to bet a ton of the time, very, very, very heavily consider a check here. Otherwise, just default bet yourself, go from there. But again, make sure the size is larger. Okay, so at this point we get called by the cutoff, fold from the big blind, go to the river, which is an extremely interesting card, double pairs the board, and fills up that front door flush draw. Hero decides to bet for 85. Now, in the notes, Hero said that he overbet to 85, polarizing his hand so that he could try to get ace high or something to call. Now, this is just sometimes a function of playing live, right? So when you're playing online, the pot size is right in front of you. Big old digits right in the middle of the table let you know exactly how big the pot is. It's extremely easy to see what percentage of the pot you're betting, if you're over betting, whatever. When you're playing live, however, you have to keep track of the pot yourself. And this is actually oftentimes why when I say on the turn that bet sizing mistake is so common, because people just don't keep track of the pot well enough when they're playing live. So if you find yourself making bets and you go back and review the hand later, and you're like, oh my god, why did I bet so small? Chances are it's just because you need to do a little bit better of a job tracking the pot to make sure that you really know how big it is. Because this $85 bet is so far away from being an over bet, it's not even funny. So it's okay. We all make this mistake. Just make sure you're being more careful and aware when you're playing in the future. So overall, I like the fact that we're betting again. If you're just trying to make sure that he doesn't like check behind if he has a flush, or make sure he doesn't check behind if he has pocket nines and could possibly get sticky. Ultimately, I'm very, very happy that we're betting. In this situation, though, we end up getting min raised, and Ju says, and then to my surprise, my opponent moans, thinks about it, and re-raises to 170. I thought that it is astronomically unlikely for him to have a 10 in his range, and he is much more likely to have an ace in his range. So I thought he put me on ace high and thought he was chopping. Okay, so that's possible, but why would he min raise if he thought that you had an ace, right? Because he's going to be giving you this sicko price, and chances are you may not consider folding that ace, getting 5 to 1, give or take. So if he is using that thought process, like why would he use this size to try to get you to fold the chop in, right? He could just go to 285 and get you to fold ace highs, and he'll probably like get you to fold ace high like every single time. So in this situation, I really hate that he moaned and thought about it and then came over the top. That's always like a disgusting action because it's so often weighted towards a strong hand. The issue in this situation is a couple things. One, I agree with you. I think there are very few 10s in the range. Could there be a couple? Most certainly, but I don't think there are very many. If he had a 7, would he have raised somewhere earlier in the hand? Would he have raised on the flop? Would he have raised on the turn? That's definitely something you want to consider to start factoring in how many big, strong, nuttish type combos he has here. The other thing you have to ask yourself is how would he value a flush here? Now, yes, the board is double paired, but it's not super likely that you have boats, right? I mean, did you really go around the world with like Jack 10? Unlikely. And how many 7s are you really raising from like early middle-ish position? Probably not a ton of them. So it's just one of those situations where would he raise a flush? And if you think he would value the flush enough to min raise it, then I think this just becomes a very, very easy call. I wouldn't use the thought process of him trying to like do something tricky with ace high and try to get you to fold chop hands. I just don't think he does that for this size. I think this size is larger if that's the thought process and the rationale he's using. And the big important factor for me again is like how would he play 7x throughout this hand? If I think he's the kind of guy that would have raised it at some point, then I probably just hate life and call this off and just kind of go forward from there. Alright, so all that being said, Ju did decide to make the call on the river. Unfortunately, was shown a 10, and obviously we ended up losing the pot. And I wouldn't beat myself up over this. Again, I didn't think there were a ton of 10x combos in there. I mean, really the only one that makes sense would be like ace 10, king 10, queen 10, jack 10, 10, 9, all of diamonds exactly, because I think he's more likely to do it with a backdoor flush draw when he's on the flop than anything else. And again, I don't even think that's necessarily an all day, every day kind of thing. So I don't beat myself up over this one. This one's just kind of weird. I do beat myself up over the details though, like the sizing on the flop, but more specifically on the turn. I think those are really, really, really important factors. And I just think this pot should have been way, way larger, and we should have been just smashing value through the board on the flop and turn. And that way the river is kind of a non-question, to be totally honest, just because the pot size would be so much larger by the time we get to the river if we had used better sizing all the way through. So Ju, thanks for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. I'll leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this type of video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there and happy grinding.